While talking about King of the Hill over the past couple of years, I've talked a bit about the very few times we've seen Hank Hill cry. I think the first time I said this was in my Bill video, and claimed that this was the only time I could ever personally remember Hank crying in the series. Every time I bring this up, I get at least a few comments talking about other times he's cried, and after my Cotton video a couple of months back, y'all made this massive comment thread of examples of Hank crying in the series. And these really got me thinking about Hank as a character. He is incredibly repressed, which is why we don't see him cry much. But is there any sort of common thread for what does make him cry? So I combed through all of the moments brought up in these comments, and I think we've got the definitive list of times Hank Hill has cried in the series. And it's pretty interesting stuff, so let's dive in and figure out what makes Hank Hill cry. But first, I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Raid Shadow Legends. I'm sure you've heard of Raid Shadow Legends by now. It has completely taken over mobile gaming. With hundreds of artifacts to equip and over 600 champions sporting unique skills, you can form a squad of champions, develop their unique skill sets, and raid the way that is most fun for you. I'm not sure about y'all, but I am a huge fan of old school turn-based RPG combat, and Raid Shadow Legends is definitely a game that scratches that itch. It's super satisfying to build up your party and use unique strategies to take out massive monsters. There's also a ton of new stuff coming to Raid this month. They're releasing 5 kick-ass new champions, and I cannot wait to see if they fit my party. They're also overhauling the Champions Vault on top of other small updates. There's a huge series of Summer Splash events for the whole month as well, where you can get some great new skins for the very popular dwarf Trunda. Oh, and one more thing.
You got it. Ultimate Death Knight, coming August 2022.
There is no better time to get started with Raid. If you click my link in the description or scan my QR code here on the screen, you'll get unique bonuses worth $30. This includes a free champion, Vergis, 200k silver, 1 energy refill, 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard, so you can summon new champions as soon as you get in game. So remember to click the link in my description and get started on your Raid journey today. So as we've sort of gone over in countless other videos, Hank is an incredibly repressed individual. I think the primary culprit here is of course his father, Cotton Hill, whose treatment of Hank as a child drastically affected how he would grow to carry himself as an adult.
I got my shins blown off by a Japan man's machine gun. So don't come crying to me with your problem.
There are actually a few examples of Cotton berating or belittling Hank for showing any emotion as a kid.
Hey, what you crying for, boy? It's a good show.
I want my binky back.
You want your binky back? You gotta come in firing!
Obviously, this isn't the only reason Hank is repressed. American society in general seems to want men to repress emotions like sadness. It's not manly, as they say. But Cotton is very representative of that society, and Hank's upbringing very much taught him to keep sadness to himself, buried deep down. Outward displays of pain or sadness are not manly. We even see an example of Hank as a teenager refusing to cry after literally breaking his ankle in a football game, staring straight-faced after the incident, and of course with Cotton berating him along the way.
This is your fault, and you got them weak ankles from your mommy.
So in the context of Hank's life, it has to take some seriously major baggage to get him to actually shed tears. Things that are deeply important to him. A few examples people give me in the comments were actually times when Hank came very close to crying, but didn't quite shed tears, but even these follow this pattern. The first is when Hank's brand new lawn was destroyed by Dale's gas in Season 1. And this wasn't just any old grass.
It's Raleigh St. Augustine.
But when he walks out his front door and sees his completely dead lawn, he nearly loses it. Hank's lawn is more than just a yard to him, it's a point of pride. It's a status symbol. He sees the lawn as a reflection of his character.
My lawn's nothing but ragweed and auto parts. I should be ashamed to live next to Hank Hill. He's got the best lawn in Arlen.
And the absolute destruction of that lawn means the neighborhood will look down on his character every time they look at his property. So as far as Hank's values and worldview go, this makes a lot of sense why it would nearly drive him to tears. It's more than just lawn care to Hank. In Season 6, Buck Strickland briefly promotes Hank to manager of Strickland Propane, and while he doesn't quite cry, he is completely overwrought with emotion, causing him to deeply embarrass himself.
Manager? Oh, Mr. Strickland, I love you.
Obviously, I think if he had cried here, it would have been a tears of joy situation, given that Hank had been the most driven and successful assistant manager that Strickland Propane had ever seen. On top of this, to Hank, Buck is sort of a surrogate father figure, and having never received that love from his actual father, this promotion clearly ignited a lot of deeply repressed feelings in Hank. But Hank's job is one of the most important things to him in his entire life. He prides himself on his work in Propane, and the promotion to manager is, frankly, something he deserves, yet has been denied continually. So, of course, this would totally overwhelm Hank. But the instances in which Hank does actually cry say even more about what's important to him. In season 1, in Hank's Unmentionable Problem, Hank is horribly constipated to the point where Peggy is severely concerned for his health, even having dreams about his death. And when she really breaks down about this to him, he breaks down as well and says how lucky he is.
To have a woman like you care so much about me, I'm going to be more open, tell you how I'm doing more, and let you in.
Now, this is season 1 King of the Hill, and sometimes the characterization was a little off in those first 13 episodes. I'm not sure I would expect Hank to say this in season 2 and beyond, but it's definitely interesting in the context of the episode, because the episode itself is literally called Hank's Unmentionable Problem, and his constipation is sort of a strong parallel to Hank being so repressed and unwilling to share his true feelings. They're both intimate aspects of himself that he finds embarrassing, and therefore doesn't want to reveal to the world, even his wife. There's a scene in the episode where Hank literally panics because Peggy is hugging him while he's on the toilet. He cannot even allow the love of his life to see him in that vulnerable position. It's pretty interesting. I do appreciate that he's brought to tears by how deeply Peggy cares for him, though. When he sees her imagine a life without him, he feels her pain, and this actually lines up pretty nicely with the next time we see Hank cry, in season 3's Death in Texas. This is a pretty standard Peggy gets in over her head episode, in which she unknowingly becomes a prison drug mule. She really thought the cocaine was just boggle timer sand.
He always tasted the timer sand when I brought it in. I didn't think anything of it at the time. He always said it was very good timer sand.
When she finally realizes her blunder, and it's looking increasingly like she could go to prison for a long time herself, Hank and Peggy reconcile with the possibility, and it's honestly a very sweet moment where Hank opens up emotionally far more than we typically see.
I'd hate to think where Bobby, Luann, and I would be without you.
After this, the family plays whack-a-mole together while Peggy and Hank both cry at the thought of their family breaking up. Obviously, Peggy doesn't go to prison, but Hank's love for Peggy and his family is incredibly clear in this episode. And though it doesn't look like they animated full tears, the thought that he and Bobby might be left without Peggy is one of the few things in the series that drives Hank to publicly show this much emotion. In fact, he's actually gone out of his way to make sure he doesn't cry in public on other occasions. In season 4's To Kill a Ladybird, Bobby befriends a raccoon that he names Bandit. Eventually, it gets into a fight with Ladybird, and after scratching her, the pair run off, which obviously leads to major fears that Ladybird might contract rabies from Bandit. Hank goes out and puts up flyers everywhere to try and find her, and when he returns home, he goes into his garage, turns on his power saw, closes the garage door, and he wails. In the end, Ladybird fortunately did not have rabies, but there's even another instance in which Hank cries over Ladybird in season 5's episode Hank's Choice, when Bobby develops an allergy to Ladybird. In this one, Hank is once again faced with the possibility of losing his dog because of this allergy, so he instead builds her a doghouse to stay outside. He gets really emotional at the doghouse's grand opening for the neighborhood, though, as it means that Ladybird would be staying outside of his house for the first time in her life.
And we hope we have made your home as wonderful as you have made ours these past 13 years. Okay, Luann, the champagne.
Now, obviously, Hank absolutely adores his dog. He has an incredibly special connection with Ladybird, but I actually think there's even more to Hank's particularly emotional state when it comes to Ladybird. After Hank and Peggy got married, they had a lot of difficulties conceiving Bobby, mostly because of Hank's narrow urethra. When it seemed like it just wasn't gonna happen, Hank got Ladybird for Peggy. And within a year of getting Ladybird, Peggy had conceived Bobby, and Hank credited them having the puppy as the reason that this was able to happen.
I always kind of believed that playing with that puppy was the one thing that finally relaxed me in my urethra.
So not only does Hank have a genuine 14-year-long bond with this dog, but she also represents to him the thing that allowed for his entire family to come to fruition, the thing that allowed he and Peggy to conceive his son, the first step to making their family complete. He has always seen her as an absolutely integral part of their family, and this is one of the big reasons. The next instance is probably the most embarrassing for Hank. In season 5's Chasing Bobby, they go to see a very sad, dramatic movie at the theater. As this older character, played by Charlton Heston, dies in front of his son, Hank breaks down.
I'm okay. Please continue to look at the screen.
Hank Hill is weeping like a little French girl.
Eventually, Hank breaks down even further, but it's revealed that the death of the character in the film was actually surfacing some of Hank's repressed emotions about his truck, which was beginning to break down.
I checked this morning, and there was water in the exhaust.
This might seem trivial at first, but earlier in the episode, they reveal how much time and work Hank has put in with his truck. He's always fixed her himself.
This truck has been through 4 presidents, 3 Cowboy Super Bowl victories, and 0 mechanics.
Hank has had this truck since the 80s, driven it every day, and put tons of care into its upkeep. He is invested in it. And when the car breaks down for good, it's gone. It's like losing a family member to Hank. There's a clear pattern here, but let's talk about this last instance of Hank crying before we break it down. In season 6's Tankin' It to the Streets, the gang goes on a wild adventure with Bill, who believes that the government experimented on him in the army, leading to his physical decline. In his frustration, he steals a tank from the army base and drives it through Arlen, so Hank and the boys do their best to try and help set things right, taking the tank back with him. When they accidentally drive it onto an artillery range, they are all in grave danger, but Bill takes the tank and acts as a decoy in order to save his friends. When the tank is then blown up, Hank and the gang understandably think that Bill is dead.
He's gone. Bill's dead.
Bill is literally one of Hank's oldest friends, as well as Boomhauer and Dale's. They played football together in high school and have lived across the alley for years. The first shot of the entire series of King of the Hill is these 4 hanging out. They are without a doubt the closest friendships that Hank Hill has, and Hank can't keep in his real feelings for Bill. That he's a brave man, he's honest, he's sweet.
Like a big old stuffed teddy bear. Oh, God. I'm gonna miss him.
The entire gang cries for Bill here. Luckily, Bill of course made it out alive, but it's nice to see how much they love their friend. So, what is the pattern here? What does make Hank Hill cry? Personally, I think that's clear. Even as an incredibly repressed man who is completely embarrassed to show any sort of intimate emotion, at least in public, he cannot help but express himself when the things that he has invested his life in are threatened. Hank really only cries over things that mean a lot to him, things that he's really put work into and has personal connection with. He nearly cries when his lawn is destroyed, something that takes a massive investment of time and effort on his part. Ditto with his truck, with the added angle that this was something that reliably took him where he needed to go for well over a decade, something that gave back. He cries over the potential loss of those he loves most, whether that's when he thinks one of his best friends has died in a selfless sacrifice, his dog might be lost or rabid, or that his wife might be going to prison for unknowingly smuggling cocaine. In spite of his repression and his manly facade, Hank is still a very loving person with deep, meaningful attachments. And though it takes a lot, not even he can hide his emotions about the things that are most important to him. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed this one. A little bit different than usual, but this was fun to explore. Let me know what you want to hear about next. Peace.
Johnny!